All right, so I've done my sketch. As soon as I've done my sketch, I can post it to the Canvas assignment, and then you have acknowledged the deadline. Even though it's not due until next class, you are required to post a sketch, and then you know that you can't get a 0 on the assignment because you've acknowledged the deadline, right? You don't need to post your inspiration, but it can be fun to post it. Just make sure it's not a super high resolution image that you're posting of your resolution. I just do a little screen grab. And now I need to go to pixabay.com to find resources that are at the angle that is shown in my sketch, right? So as I do that, I'm going to go to Pixabay. And for instance, I want a pine cone for the tail. So when I look up pine cone, I want to make sure that I'm just looking at photos. I don't want illustrations or vectors. And I want no AI images. Because if I do AI images of that pine cone, they might be beautiful textures, but you're going to notice something when you do figurative content, that only the middle part is in focus. Everything else gets really blurry really fast, which makes it really hard to use for something that you want to have full control of. And you're going to find that with some of the real photos. So if I do authentic only, right, there are going to be some pine cones that have depth of field issues, like this one, where when you look at it closely, you can actually just see it from right here. You see how it gets really blurry at the edges? That's because the camera has a very narrow focal depth for visual impact. So instead, I want ones like this that just show the whole thing I might want to use in focus. And then I want to download it at the highest possible resolution. And I think these mushrooms might be interesting as a texture on the back. And the blue pine cone is really interesting. But even the pine needles, that might be an whoops. Yeah, careful not to click on edit image or I'll open it immediately in Canva. It's one of their sponsorships. Because Pixabay is a free site and you can be a member for free. And you can avoid seeing ads by donating 10 images that are accepted. But they still have to make money, so you're still going to see stuff. That takes you to paid sites. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to look for, kind of inspired by some of these different searches, the absurdity of association with the searches, is I wanted to look for red bell pepper. Because food, of course, is organic. And sometimes those textures can be really useful in the kind of thing we're doing. So I want to use this maybe as kind of the back shell of my creature. Or maybe he'll just have red bell pepper claws. Now you need a minimum of 5, but you're probably going to have more than that. And I always have to limit my ambitions a little bit because I get a little bit too excited sometimes. And then don't have enough time to finish everything I intend. Let's see, that's pretty strong. The nice thing about food photography too is often it will be on a blank background, which makes it really easy to trim out. But what you do need is clear focus on everything. I have some weird ideas. Okay. So I'm going to download these. And these are all what are called Creative Commons open images, which means You can use them for whatever purpose you want, and you never need to give any attribution to the person that created them or posted them. You're under no obligation whatsoever. But even so, I'll get, an email every 2 months or so from a person that's used one of the things I've donated to Pixabay in a project. And so it's nice. An aspect of digital art that's nice is the generosity of the design community, especially offering free resources. Now, if you're working for a client and they have a budget for sourcing your materials, that's when you would use things like stock image sites, the kind of ones that are advertising on that first row in Pixabay. All right, the next step is to take your sketch, and I actually like this sketch a little bit more, so I'm going to use this one. And I'll do exactly what you guys need to do, so I'm not even going to save that one. I'm going to bring the photo of my sketch, I just photographed it from the whiteboard, into my computer. And then I'm going to open it with Photoshop. And the first thing we need to do is set it up to be the right pixel dimensions for printing, right? So what do? I use my move tool and I use my rulers and I try to frame in a rectangle around my creature design. My creature design will just have a blank white background when I'm done. But I need to make sure that it's composited at a high enough resolution to be printable, right? Yes. So if you don't see the rulers, you can hit Command R, and that will show them. And then for everything like that, all the tools that we want to make visible, you'll find them under View. So View, and then you see rulers here, and then it will show you the shortcut. The guides that I'm using, those blue lines, you'll find that under Show. So it's under View, Show, and then Guides, and those can be turned on and off with Command semicolon. Later we'll be using the grid as well. But those will really be the only things we use: the ruler, the guides, and the grid. And then the other thing you want is for them to snap. So we want it to snap to guides, our selections to snap to them, our crop tool to snap to them. And that's a default. Okay, next. I've already posted this to Canvas, so I don't need to worry about losing my notes. I just got to get the shape around my sketch. So I've brought in my guides by clicking on the rulers and dragging down. Now I'm going to use that crop tool, which is the dangerous tool, and it's going to stick to my guides. And this will give me what's called the aspect ratio. What is the actual physical shape my print's going to be? It's almost a square. It's a little bit wider than it is tall. And if I go to then image size, this is dictated by the phone camera I used, right? It looks really big because new phones, mine's not that new, but newish phones, they have pretty high resolution. So this is at 34 inches by 30 inches, way physically bigger than I need, but it's only at screen resolution. So what I'm going to do first, just to show you, is uncheck resample, which means that the pixels will not change. Only the physical expression of the pixels will change. And I'm going to change that to 350, which is our studio resolution. And at 350, this is only 6 by 7 inches. So then I click resample because I want to change it. And at 350, I want this to be at least 8 by 10 inches. So I'm going to take the width and make that 10. And that's automatically going to make the height 8.8. Does that make sense? Because I resampled it, it grew pixels. And it actually doubled the pixels, almost exactly. So it was 15.5 megabytes. Now it's going to be 31 megabytes. Where does all that extra memory come from? It's because the computer is now making up pixels. So when I say OK, it's going to soften the original pixels by pretty much doubling them and making a little ring around every pixel. But it's perfectly fine because this is just the planning sketch, right? And now this is at the resolution I need. Whoops, that's the crop tool. That's the danger of the crop tool. There we go. Undo, get off the crop tool. So I've cropped it, and I'm going to check my image size. I can also see it in the bottom left-hand corner. Now it is larger than 8 by 10 by 350 pixels per inch. I'm good to go. The next step, just like we did with our landscape, we have our plan in the middle of our desk, but we want desk space. And the analogy for this is not going to be desk space with a collage. The analogy for building our creature is going to be like the factory floor of a car manufacturing plant. And so we have a factory floor we need to make. And in the middle of the factory floor is where all the pieces are going to get welded together. But we need space in the factory to build the engine, to build the chassis, to build the axles, right? All the parts of the body in order to put them together in the middle. So what do? I'm going to Command minus, zoom out a little bit, and then I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to make this 40 inches by 30 inches. This doesn't change my original pixels, it simply adds more around it. And the extension color I'm going to use is gray. I'm going to grow it from the middle. And now I have the factory floor, right? But this is where the intended finished creature will be built. And it will fit this size. And then at the end, I'll crop down to it. Now is a good time to save my work, right? Actually, let me bring on some reference first. So these are some of the references I downloaded. I think I got a few more I can add in. Yeah, the bell peppers. So I bring them all into my reference folder. It makes it easy to see. And I'm not sketching from these anymore, but my sketch is telling me how I can put these to use. So I've got tarantula ones. I don't have any ants yet. Where's my open bell pepper? I was hoping to use that for the jaw. Huh. Maybe I never downloaded that one. So I want this one. I'm going to download it. And I was thinking this might be fun to make the jaws out of, instead of from an ant or something that's really recognizable. This split pepper with the weird little baby peppers inside. I cook with a lot of bell pepper, so I'm very familiar with this phenomenon. But that's going to be the jaw. I need the cranium. And I think this is good potential for the cranium. Even though you can see how limited that focus is, right? It gets blurry right at the edge. But I think that can work. And then for the eyes, I actually wanted to use, for extra eyes, the red-eyed tree frog. So I got those at the right angle. And then for the mandibles, let's see. Yeah, that's too out of focus. If anyone's afraid of spiders, I apologize. Don't mean to trigger you. So that's actually probably the cleanest cranium. So I might use that. Yeah. So do check the focus of them. So I'm going to bring this one in, just drag and drop it in. You can see how it's big enough. I'm just going to push it off to the side for now. I wish the angle was better on that, but you'll see how I can make that work with the eyes. I'm going to bring these in as the eyes. And I can just immediately flip it by right-clicking as a smart object. You see these are plenty big. I can shrink it down a little bit. Because the first thing I'm going to build is the head. The head is like the engine to your creature design. It's the focal point. And then the mandible. So there's already 3 different things I want to composite just for the head of my creature. For the eyes, for the mandible, and for the cranium. All right. Now is a good time to save it. You can notice the smart objects, file, save as. Make sure you save it with your name. It needs to be saved as something other than a JPEG because it's got multiple layers. So I'm going to call it a Skeletor crab. but I always start with my name. So Karl, assignment 2, where the morning